There's been a mystery floating around the Alan Wake community since players first got to the end of episode 5. Wait, no, this isn't right. I've been here before. I don't remember doing this. At least it isn't a big spiral covering my whole wall this time. Alan Wake 2's first DLC, Night Springs, released in the summer of 2024. Going into the DLC, I assumed it was going to be something that Tom Zane and Casper Darling made to get out of the dark place. It was a part of that grander plan I was talking about in my last video. Turns out each episode was written by Alan Wake. Considering it's still likely that Wake is some combination of Darling and Zane, I'll consider that a win. We got 3 episodes of Night Springs, each one following a different character. I'm going to be going over how each episode changed reality and how it relates to my greater theory from my last video. If you haven't watched it, I definitely recommend doing so before you continue with this one. And if you have seen it, but you still want a little bit of a refresher on the theory, I recommend going back and watching it too. It's honestly one of my favorite videos I've done on the channel. Also, let me know what you think about the theory down below and share what you think is happening. Remedy clearly wants to spark discussion like this online, and I love seeing different interpretations about their games. And with that out of the way, we will begin with the first episode of Night Springs.
#1 fan.
Rose's episode is cute, silly, and fun. It was the shortest during my first playthrough and was the simplest of the bunch. Set in Rose's dream universe, where she is the most successful waitress, fanfic writer, and blogger of all time. During what I guess is an average day for her in this universe, Alan reaches out to her through a fish and asks for help. She arms up and goes to save her writer. His evil and less talented / hot twin brother captured him, and he's going to kill him, and he's got an army of haters to prevent Rose from saving him. She tracks him down, and it turns out he didn't writer nap him. He was just distracting Rose so the haters can kill him. After Alan reaches out to her again, this time through a deer, Rose confronts the twin, turning him good, and stops the haters. And after finally seeing each other face to face, they live happily ever after. So how did this change reality? Looking at the bones of this episode, we got Rose saving Alan from Obviously, Rose doesn't do that in the base game, but she does help him at one point and even mentions how she was getting his signs. I don't think he was directly reaching out through the dark place to connect with her. I think Alan writing this episode is why Rose sees those signs. Even the fan fiction that you find in the episode, I think that's the paper you find ripped up in all of the lunchboxes throughout the base game. All of Rose's motivations from the base game of Alan Wake 2 come from this episode. It's why she helps Saga throughout her story, and it's why she helps Alan at the end of the base game. This has the least to it out of all of the episodes. If I didn't want to dot my I's and cross my T's, I honestly could have left this whole thing at Rose helping Alan in this episode is why Rose helps Alan. I've said everything I can say about it, which brings us to episode 2.
North Star.
I find Jesse's episode very interesting. It's basically Control if you replace the FBC with coffee-loving aliens, and the Hiss with coffee mind control from said aliens. The episode starts exactly like Control, but at Coffee World, Washington's best coffee-themed amusement park. Jesse is guided to the park by Polaris and finds a cop played by Tim Breaker. He goes on about some government conspiracy and tells her about a facility that might have her brother. To open it, she has to watch a training video and recite the 4th word in the Dark Triangle Coffee mission statement, discover the optimal roasting temperature of Dark Triangle coffee in fake temperature, and drink some coffee to become coffee. After drinking it, Tim is jumped by some enemies and somehow gets coffee in his mouth. Entering the facility, there's some evil mascots walking around, and you find Tim overtaken by coffee. Her brother is in the basement, except it's not Dylan Faden from Control, it's Alan Wake. So how did this stupid coffee-themed version of Control affect anything? Following what I said in my last video, No piece of art can cause or affect the ordinary AWE. No matter what, Jessie was going to find Polaris in the slide projector and lose her brother to the FBC. The experiments that Darling did on Hedron, because the Hiss were invading, caused him to be sent to the dark place and made him aware of Jessie. In that video, I said they got Polaris to tell Jessie to go to the oldest house. This episode is how they did that, by getting Alan to write an episode where Polaris tells Jessie to go to the shady government organization to save her brother. This episode is what reached out to Polaris to tell Jessie to go to the oldest house. Dark Triangle Coffee is clearly a nod to the board, and we see that through its iconography. But it's more to it than just that subtle reference. Remedy is constructed alternatively. So this logo is a mashup of every symbol on the doors found in the Ocean View Hotel in Control and Hotel from Alan Wake 2. Now, what does this mean? I'm hoping you just said what it means out loud or typed it in the comments down below, because I legitimately do not know. Remedy doesn't just throw random stuff in their games for no reason. With this, I think it's too early to tell what they're getting at, if they're getting at anything at all. That's all of the really important stuff from this episode. When you play as Alan in the base game, you can find cigarettes that subtly reference the board in the same way. I don't know what it's about. Also, Alan quotes Dylan at the end, so maybe he's the reason why Dylan is controlled by the Hiss. Alan can't be the reason why the Hiss take over the FBC though, because Darling going too far in his experiments is a result of that takeover. This is mostly just what caused Jessie and Polaris to go to the oldest house. There's a bit more to this one than the first, but it does not reveal as much as the third and final episode.
Timebreaker.
Look at the runtime for the rest of this video. You already know I got a lot to say about this one. Episode 3 starts with a more vibrant version of the screen we see when switching between characters in the base game. And a monologue, not from Tim Breaker, not from Jack Joyce from Control, but from Shawn Ashmore, the actor who plays them. Like I said, this one is bigger, much stranger. He's on a Poison Pill Entertainment set being ran by Sam Lake. They're making a video game called Timebreaker, which blends gameplay and FMV. It's Quantum Break. This is straight up an alternate reality version of Quantum Break. Sam explains how the multiverse works in the game, goes as far to say in another reality, this is a video game and another version of Shawn is playing it. Even the agent he's playing in the game is somewhere out there and he can show up at any time. Shawn goes to his green room to read the script. Door, his nemesis in the Timebreaker video game, kills another version of him. The script on the floor here is most likely the script for this segment. When he enters the room, a version of Jessie is there, cracks a joke, but realizes that this isn't Branch, someone who Sam said is another version of the main character in the video game. Door then transports Shawn to another universe, but he does recognize the red-headed woman though. He hears his own voice in his head and concludes that it is this universe's version of him. He finds a whiteboard in a cabin that I'll get to later, and this note. Remembering the lore about the game Sam gave him, he figures out what he has to do. Find the node and escape through a TV. While he finds the node, another version of him babbles on about being the chosen one. That version of himself dies. So I guess he wasn't the chosen one. Seeing another dead version of himself makes him realize that he is truly lost in the multiverse. Jumping to another universe, he's trapped in a spiraling black and white hotel. He speculates that this reality's version of himself is already dead because he can't hear his thoughts. He's able to find his way out of this universe and thinks of the red-headed woman to hopefully end up in her universe, where he winds up in a comic book. He's in the Ripple Effect Corporation, some sort of multiversal FBC. You see signs from this company in every reality during the DLC. He meets Jessie, who is confirmed to be the red-headed woman who gives him a massive lore dump on how the multiverse works here. TLDR, the infinite multiverse is real. Each version of characters are tied together within this multiverse. Experiences of one echo as dreams within another. She also gives us Door's alleged backstory. He found a parallel reality that gave him powers, but killed every other version of him. She tells him that they thought Breaker was the chosen one, but it might be this version of him, the actor. He transports to another universe to find Door, but ends up in a 16-bit video game. After killing waves of himself, Door shows up and offers to team up with him. The actor declines, and Door says he'll regret it, but he was lying about the deal anyways. It's not like he likes you or anything, Baka. Going to another universe, he ends up in the edge of the multiverse, or like a trench in the multiverse. He's not really sure. Door isn't in this universe though, so he travels to another one. The rest of the DLC is a text-based adventure. There's a lot of parallels here, like too many. This final section could be its own video. I'm only going to cover the important parts for my theory. The actor is led to the master of many worlds, but it isn't Warlin Door. It's Alan Wake. This one I need to cover more because the implications here are massive. I can't leave it at this is why a character in the Remedyverse does this. It is not that simple. If that was the case, the whole episode exists just so Tim can go to Bright Falls and be abducted by Door. And Tim needs to go to Bright Falls so he can help Saga before Door abducts him. Outside of the stuff with Tim, this episode implies that Alan just made the multiverse real, or at the very least is the master of many worlds, like the ending says. This episode is why I've been putting off making this video. It is so easy to get lost in it. In my last episode, I said that Zane and Darling made Wake to free them from the dark place, as a greater part of their plan where Night Springs was at the center of it. Wake is the one that wrote these 3 episodes, so by extension, they did make it. The level of truth behind that depends on if you believe they made Wake or they are Wake. Throwing the infinite multiverse into the middle of all of this, though, makes it hard to track. The best way I can go about this is to break the segment into 2 more parts. First, we'll go over Easter eggs that might mean something, and then my theory for what this all means. First off, the little chit chat with Sam explaining how the multiverse works within their games. Poison Pill's name is clearly the opposite of Remedy. It is truly boundless, like everything everywhere all at once. It's to the point that our universe exists within that multiverse. It's like what Sam said, in another reality, a version of Shawn Ashmore is playing this game. That is our reality, Shawn Ashmore. Hell, this video is a part of a different universe from the one that I made it in, from the one that you are currently watching it in. And that in itself is a different universe from the one that the game takes place in. Every possible creative choice I could have made for this video branched off and created its own universe. Assuming we're going off of the many worlds interpretation, which both Darling and Timebreaker Sam Lake clearly believe in, the DLC goes through great lengths to prove that this is how the multiverse works, which is why I've been all over the place with this theory since I played it. In the forest section, there's 2 things I want to talk about. The first is the whiteboard we see. In the base game, we do see Tim updating his whiteboard, and they say similar things. The main difference is that DLC Tim here clearly knows more than base game Tim. The main similarity I want to mention is that both boards bring up the red-headed woman. She was clearly close with Branch, so there must be something that is cosmically linking these 2.
如果有来生，我还是会选择和你一起报税，开始一天。
There's also this spiral drawing that Sam Lake tweeted out like 8 years ago. I've seen many people try to figure out what it is, attributing different stuff to each layer. Personally, I think it goes Alan Wake, American Nightmare, Quantum Break, Control, then the You Are Here is Alan Wake 2. And if I am right about this, we can count how many games are left in the Remedyverse. The comic lore dump section confirms that Quantum Break exists within this multiverse, and not in a cute, haha, the multiverse is infinite way like I was saying about this video. She directly references what happens to her Quantum Break counterpart, alongside Jesse and North Star Jesse. For Sam Lake, we see DLC Sam Lake, real life Sam Lake, I'm guessing, and Casey. For Alan, we see him and Thomas Zane, which makes sense. And based on the one on the left, I'm assuming in other realities, he's just his double. She also describes the multiverse as a sea of night, which keen-eyed viewers may have noticed that is the same name as a song from the Old Gods of Asgard EP, the Yet to Be Heard one. Looking through the lyrics with that context, yeah, that song is about traveling the multiverse. She also refers to the voices that he hears in his head and the dreams that he's felt like he's always had about her as echoes. Like that mechanic in The Dark Place. In the last segment, there's too much to cover. Like there's a lot. He's brought here by thinking about the master of many worlds. In the beginning, there was only the word is a quote we see early on, and when he's finally brought to the master, it is Alan, not Dor. So yeah, Alan either created the multiverse with the help of Darling's book, or broke down the barriers between reality. At the very least, we've been traveling across the multiverse already in this series, and we didn't even know it. Oh, hey, board from Quantum Break that I just found out existed while I was writing this video. What are you doing here? First off, I believe every single time Alan is in a live action cutscene, that is another universe. What initially set me on this rabbit hole is how Sean jumps from reality to reality. The transition screen is a more colorful version of the same one that plays when you switch characters. And how does he go from universe to universe? He jumps through TVs. Much like how Alan enters the talk show, or meets up with Zane, or enters the writer's room. All those versions of traveling to a different universe are similar to the slide projector from Control. Interesting how every way we've seen to get to a different universe within this series involves something that displays media, excluding Warlin Dor. On the note of Dor, all of his interviews end with the lights flickering, which is exactly how Tim is teleported to the Dark Place. Alan enters through his own means with the TV, but Dor always sends him back. But Dor's backstory is in this episode, so it is entirely possible that Alan is responsible for his powers. So while I was editing, I noticed this scene from the base game.
This has gone on long enough. This and our Night Springs was a nice distraction.
Given how Dor was acting, I don't think Alan is the reason why he has his powers. He would have had them before they collaborated on Night Springs. I think Zane and Darling got Dor to work with Alan, on top of taking Odin's eye, in exchange for Alan's writing to get Tim to go to Bright Falls, so Dor can send him to the Dark Place after he's helped Saga. Zane is clearly hiding in another universe for some reason, and maybe Alan's writer's room is on the edge of reality, like in the DLC. If the infinite multiverse exists, I can't help but wonder how the Dark Place changes reality and why the Dark Presence needs to take over this one reality. If there's an infinite number of universes, that means it's gotten out an infinite number of times, right? What if the Dark Place is only connected to the reality the games take place in? Let's call it the main reality. The section coming up, I think, is the most out there theory I have. I think it's a thought worth entertaining. What if the Dark Place doesn't change the reality of the main universe? What if it's able to change what reality the main universe is? Or like it taps into other realities to alter that one. If everything begins with the word and the word changes reality, who says that it doesn't create that new reality and insert it into the main universe? For example, let's think about Bird Leg Cabin, the place where it all started. When Alan arrives to Bright Falls, it's there. But when writing Departure, it changes the main universe into one where the cabin sunk into the lake. So everyone else thinks it's sunk, not because their memory was altered, but because they are all from a universe where it did. And the few characters that are able to see through the lies, like Alan or the Andersons as an example, are aware of the changes because they have always been the main universe version of themselves. Not one plucked from universe B and dropped into the main one. The Andersons are actually one of the most compelling parts about this theory for me. Remember, the Dark One took Odin's eye. In Norse mythology, that gave Odin knowledge. Even though it was the wrong eye, that still happened to Odin. And who is the Dark One believed to be? Warlin Door. This still yet to be heard of song shares a name with the multiverse. With this concept in mind, it is very clearly about sailing through the multiverse. They know it exists. There's one line from Sea of Night that I find insane when you factor in the many worlds interpretation. We have been warriors, poets, and elder gods. With the context of the multiverse, poets clearly refers to the real-life band that portrays the old gods, Poets of the Fall, and our universe is a part of this multiverse. Elder Gods is most likely referring to Thor and Odin, but with that framing, we don't really know who Warriors is in reference to. I think it's possible that Warriors refers to Thor and Odin being warriors of light, and Elder Gods refers to them being Thor and Odin in another universe, which could be why he was upset about losing the wrong eye. They definitely know about the multiverse and all of their variants. I can't stop myself from thinking that the reality-altering effects of the Dark Place have something to do with the multiverse, when the 4 characters we know of who can see through the lies are connected to the multiverse. 2 of them are brothers, and one of them's their granddaughter. Oh, and who is theorized to be Saga's father? Dor. Deep down, she might have some awareness of the multiverse considering her bloodline. And maybe when she's doing her profiling, she's tapping into the multiverse. Again, the final one is Alan Wake, someone who the DLC refers to as the true master of many worlds. And where does he get new plot points from? Echoes. Hey, redheaded woman, do you want to explain what echoes are?
What you think you are feeling is just an echo. Some other version of us in some other lifetime.
Hell, how he changes scenes in the Dark Place is how I imagine the Dark Place changes reality. There are 3 other characters who I think know when the universe is being altered. There's Adi, who is theorized to be some cosmic being living inside of a Finnish janitor. He is the only other person to call Alan Tom. Adi clearly has something going on that us being 3-dimensional beings can't understand. And I still think Darling and Zane are the cause of everything. Just because the multiverse is in play now doesn't change that for me. To finally wrap this whole thing up, each episode of Night Springs was why an aspect of the Remedyverse happened. It was us playing through those stories that changed reality. It's why Rose helps Alan and Saga in the base game. It's why Polaris got Jesse to go to the oldest house. It's why Tim started having those strange dreams and moved to Bright Falls. Or on the most extreme end, it's why the infinite multiverse exists. Congrats on being canon to the Remedyverse. And because of that episode, I'm somewhat confident enough to say that the Dark Place doesn't just alter reality, it swaps pieces with ones from another universe. And honestly, saying this all out loud and noticing the whole echo thing while I was recording footage for the DLC, I missed it while I was taking notes and writing the script, really convinced me that I might be right on this. With the final DLC coming out the day I upload this, hopefully, I'm recording it on October 6th. We've only gotten the teaser trailer so far. It should shed more light on how the Dark Place works. And if I'm right about the multiverse, Sea of Night is 100% playing in that DLC. It's already confirmed that we're going to be playing as Agent Estevez. I still believe that the other character we're playing as is Casper Darling, and that we will finally be on the other end of that phone call from the base game, where you play as somebody from the FBC, either Estevez or Jesse, trying to figure out what happened to the lake house and Darling on one side of reality, while playing as Darling on the other side. Hell, we might get a hint towards the next game in the Remedyverse, like we did with Control's final DLC. Dude, we're probably going to see the full version of the whiteboard that was behind Darling in one of those New Game Plus videos, because that video did take place where this DLC is set. All I know for sure is that if the FBC was analyzing the Dark Place, we will be getting answers when we visit the lake house.